Welcome back to Coaches of Louisville. This month we have Kenny Stottman with us, and we're very excited to have him. Thanks for coming.
My pleasure.
So,
Looking forward to it.
Kenny was a requested coach for us, and I have watched Kenny coach for many years. I remember when I was in middle school getting into cross country, and he was out there with St. Edwards and Derby City, and so it's really exciting to get to talk to you now about all the things that you have been involved in. So first of all, go ahead and tell us a little bit about you.
Well, I'm an old fart. I went to Trinity High School. Well, I went to St. Barnabas, which they just tore down last week, and went to Trinity High School, and went to JCC and U of L. But I first got into running when I was little. We didn't have a car, so I ran 5 miles to school every day. No, I'm just kidding. Actually, I didn't get into running until I went to Trinity as a freshman, went to freshman orientation, and was looking for something to join, a club or something. I played football in middle school, but I was too little to play in high school. I didn't want to get killed. So I was walking around the room, and I saw a cross-country table and went over and talked to them. I said, oh, this sounds pretty easy. I think I'll sign up. So, of course, I was wrong. It wasn't easy, but I signed up, and it was a lot of fun, and realized I had a little bit of talent. Wasn't no superstar, but joined the team, and that's where I first started getting into running, was my freshman year at Trinity.
Okay. So what did you enjoy about that team atmosphere?
Oh, that was the key part. First of all, you know, as my parents would say, that's a good group to hang around with, because they have to be dedicated, and so they don't have a lot of time to get into trouble. So, but I enjoyed running, and as a freshman, met a lot of new friends that, you know, I weren't friends from my grade school that were in high school, and got to hang out with them. And of course, as everybody talks about cross country, it's everybody's in it together, and it's a good camaraderie, and really enjoyed it. And the best thing about it was my high school coach, Coach Rostel, was just a phenomenal coach and person. Really looked up to him big time, and still do, even though he's passed away many years ago. So, but that was one of the keys, was running for Coach Rostel. So, but yeah, high school career was a lot of fun, a lot of great memories, and met a lot of friends, and it was the beginning of Coach Rostel's career. When he first started coaching was when we started, so he was kind of building Trinity's program back up. They were good a few years, like a decade before, but they was trying to rebuild the program. And with our group of freshmen, we came in, and my 4 years there, we never did win state. I think we got second twice, third, and fourth one year, the 4 years that I ran. So I remember in PE class, we were running the mile as my freshman year, and I thought it was right after cross-country season ended, and I was like, oh, I got this. So I'm sitting there running the laps around. I was way ahead of everybody, and right before I got to the finish, some guy just comes flying by me, and I'm like, oh my gosh, and you didn't even run cross-country. And it was a guy named Don No, which a lot of old farts that'd been around a while would know who he was. At one point, he held the state record for the mile. So I pulled him aside. I said, Coach Rostel, you got to get this guy. So from his sophomore to senior year, he ran, and he was like one of the top 2 or 3 runners at the state at that time. So that was kind of fun. But I had a lot of great memories doing road trips with the team. We didn't go very far, but one of our favorite meets was the Covington Catholic meet. And I remember driving up in our our bus. I'm kind of old, so. But in our bus, and just some of memories that popped up in my head. I remember we're riding up and the radio was on and the song Ramblin' Man by the Allman Brothers came on, and everybody just spontaneously started singing along with that. So every time I hear that song, it kind of has that feeling, when you hear an old song and it brings back, positive feelings. So every time I hear that Ramblin' Man, I think of high school cross country back in the early 70s. So we only ran 2 miles back then too, so.
Well, what an awesome memory,
Yeah.
to have, and every time that song plays, that memory comes back up. So how did you go from being an athlete and loving the sport of cross country to then wanting to coach cross country?
Well, when we had our son was just getting enrolled into St. Edward, and I was thinking, I need to get involved in the school, so I'll join the booster club. So I figured they'd drink beer and play cards and raise money, is that I did. But that was a whole different ball game, They were in there and coaches were arguing and this and that over, playing time and this and that. And they said, well, we don't have a cross country coach this year. And I said, well, I ran cross country. I think I could coach the cross country like that. So they said, well, you're the coach. So the first year we only had like 4 kids, but first thing I did to get involved in coaching was I went to Coach Rostel at Trinity and said, all right, I'm starting a program at St. Edward's, they only had 4 kids at the time, so give me some good, workouts, good exercise, good stretching routine, and this and that. So Coach Rostel was great. He always he gave me a lot of good feedback and gave me some good ideas. Coach Rostel was so good. We always had an alumni race every year, so I stayed in contact with him. He'd personally call me every year, probably for 20 years, and said, our alumni race is coming up. Kenny, we'd love to have you come out and run in the alumni race. So I did many of that's before cell phones and internet and all that good stuff. So everything was done on landline phones. And he always made it special to call and invite me personally to the alumni races for many, many years. So that was something special. And he had a photographic memory. He could remember our workout times. He go, and I wasn't like the superstar runner. He'd remember, my time. Can I remember when he had that kind of, he was from up east. He had that kind of northern accent. He goes, I remember your 400 workouts. He'd name the time, and I go, oh my gosh, how do you remember all that? So he was just a wonderful, wonderful coach. Really inspired me. So, but yeah, that's how I got coaching was they needed someone. So my son was going into school. He was first grade, and I figured he liked to run, so I got him into running, and I was trying to build a program, and the first thing I did at that time, St. Edward had a lot of great athletes in the school, so I started going around. I figured this is going to be great. I get all these great athletes to run, so I go and ask them, and they looked at me like, are you crazy? Trying to get them to join cross country, because they were good in all these other sports, and I just had trouble trying to recruit the kids to run. So for many years, we didn't even have enough for a team. So eventually, when my son got like 3rd and 4th grade, I started, all his buddies are hanging out, I started getting them to run. So that kind of was our first group of kids that we built a team, and they turned out to be pretty decent. We were always in good competition with the other kids, and I figured I would just coach, through my son's 8th grade. But when he got to 8th grade, we had a group of girls like in 3rd and 4th grade that just loved cross country, and I could see a lot of talent. And I said, well, my son went to high school. He's more of a baseball guy anyway, so he played baseball, and I was really getting into it. So I'm gung-ho now. So I'm like, what can I do to promote the sport? Because we got like 3 or 4 girls that are really good. So I started I had my my niece's husband was a photographer. So I had him make these posters, and I had these, runners, great pose, running and holding trophies and this and that, trying to get the word out. I'd post them throughout the school or in the gym and stuff, trying to get the kids involved in the cross country. And every now and then go, how can I be on that poster? Well, run cross country, come on out. So slowly but surely, that group, when they got to middle school, we had this one girl named Hillary Raitt, and she was kind of like just an amazing athlete, amazing runner, put it that way. And she would just glide across the thing, and so we kind of got her into running a little bit more. And the next thing you know, she was starting to win races. And then by the time she was in 6th grade, she was winning races by over a minute. And so she had won state in 6th, 7th, and 8th grade. She got 2nd, and she was sick that day, so that's really the only reason she got 2nd. So she was just like, kind of put St. Edward on the map. So, so back then there wasn't quite as many opportunities to run races. So with a girl this talented, I started looking for other races. So we went down to the Gatorland run, and that was always a fun race where we could race kids from other parts of the state. And so we kind of got the word out, and Hillary won those races and stuff. So it kind of put us on the map, and that's really what got our program started. In fact, I think it was 2003. That group of girls plus Hillary, we were pretty good. We always finished in the top 4 in most of the invitationals throughout the year. We went down to state at Cave Lake Park in Somerset, Kentucky. Beautiful course. And back then, they didn't have live results or instant results. When you raced, you didn't know. It took you about a half an hour before you found out who actually won. They had to tally the scores and this and that. So we're down at Cave Lake Park, and we're at the state meet. We're all excited. I was saying, we have a good shot. The top 5 teams got up on the podium and got an award and stuff. I said, we have a good shot of being in the top 5, so let's all go out. So we ran, and the kids ran the race of their life. Hillary won, and we had 2 others in the top 10, and we had another like 50, 30, and 50th place, something like that. And we're on, they have like an island where they have the results. So we're kind of hanging around on the island. And so they call, these 5 teams need to come up there. So the 5 teams get up there. And the team that just dominated the whole year was College View from Owensboro. They never lost, and we raced them twice during the year, and they beat us pretty handedly at the Tiger Run, and I think one of the Oldham County meets. But anyway, make a long story short, we're listening for the results, and they say in 5th place, Burns or something like that, and 4th place, Davies County, and we're like, all right, we're in the top 3, and then the next one, I can't remember who it was, Oldham County, and then it got down to the final 2 between us and College View, and we're all celebrating because we thought we finished 2nd, because there's no way we thought we'd beat College View. And then when they announced in 2nd place College View, the girls, the video, I have video of this, their mouth just dropped, and they were like stunned, they were in shock, and I went into state. That was probably one of the most favorite moments, and that kind of legitimized everything, and that really got me gun-ho for coaching. So sorry to ramble on like that, but that was just an amazing memory for me. So yes.
That's awesome. And just like how you persevered too, because when you started the program, you only had 3 or 4 athletes, and it takes time to build a program, right? And you stuck with it, and now look at the fruit of your labor, and the combination of the athletes you came in, and they bought into the program. And then now, years later, St. Edward's is still a successful team and brings great athletes to every meet. And the number one thing that I see with these athletes is a smile on their faces. And that's what I hear from parents too when they're talking about you, is like, he makes practice fun. So tell me about your coaching philosophy and what you like to do with your athletes.
Okay. Well, first of all, I got one little quick story about Coach Rostel. The Trinity coach. He he pretty much dominated him and Coach Medley at St. X. They pretty much dominated the boys cross country in the 80s and 90s, and unfortunately he got cancer at a young age. I'm thinking he was in late 40s or something like that. It was probably, I think it was 98, and I'd already been coaching this. I started coaching like 93. I'd already been coaching like 4 or 5 years, and we've started building, having a few enough kids for teams at that time, but we had never won anything, any invitation or anything. I remember going to his funeral, and right after the funeral I had to rush because we were in an invitational over at Seneca Park, and we entered 4 teams in the invitational, and we won 3 of the 4 races and finished second in the 4th race. And it was divine intervention, because that's the first time we ever won a race at all. And that group of girls I was telling you, in one state, they were in 3rd and 4th grade, and they had this purple trophy, and they were holding this purple trophy, going around holding this purple trophy. And of course, that kind of got them hooked, and they went on, and that's when they won the state championship in 2003. But yeah, when I was trying to recruit kids, I come to find out that cross-country coaches cannot have inferiority complexes, because for most people, we're low on the priority list. So when I was trying to get kids to coach, get the kids to run, I said, well, we're going to practice Tuesday and Thursday, or Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. Go, well, that's when my soccer practice, or that's when my baseball, that's when my volleyball, club volleyball, or whatever it was. So I'm thinking, I'm just going to have practice every day, and you all can show up. So I go Monday through Friday, just try to make 2 days. I'll make it to where you don't have an excuse where you can't come out. But for coaches that are just starting to coach, it's not about pleasing the kids at first, it's about pleasing the parents. If you can make it easy on the parents, then the kids want to do it, but the kids have to make it to work in the parents' schedules. So I always promoted cross country. Where can you have an 8th grade boy practice the same time with his 1st grade sister at the same place at the same time? How convenient is that, you know? You do not need any equipment at cross country. All you need is shoes. So it's not very expensive. So we're very flexible. We have all these different practice times. Make what you can. Then hopefully they get hooked on it, and then they'll start coming a lot more. So that was I had to do, because at first, it was hard to get people involved. And I figured once you get the kids, every year you get a bunch of kids, and you always have a few that drop off. And I always tell them, I said, just give it time. Once you get to the point where you can run 1 or 2 miles without it hurting, and you'll eventually get hooked on the sport. And the parents are the same way. So that's in the early days. That's what I had to do. I had to realize I had to please the parents as much or more than the kids. But now, and once we built the program, the whole key is making it fun for the kids. So, especially in elementary and middle school, it's all about the kids having fun. It's all about popsicles, scavenger hunts. I made up a bunch of different games. Puzzle hunts, where you find puzzles, and you get the pieces, and the first team that can put their puzzle together wins. And they don't realize they're running halfway around the park trying to find all these pieces, and they probably get more miles doing that than we had actual practice. But yeah, it's fun. And then kids at that age, they don't need to be running 5 days a week. They need to be involved in other sports, and then hopefully as they get a little older, they really start to really like it, and then they devote a little more time into it as they get older. And that's how you kind of build your program. So, but us, St. Edward's in the early days, the enrollment was pretty good size for a Catholic school. We were like 400 to 500. Now we've kind of leveled off the last 5 or 6 years, right around 250 to 300 kids. So the talent pool isn't big, but if you can get a handful of kids interested, then it makes it all worthwhile. And And also, when you're building a team, I noticed you have most of your kids are part-time runners. They play other sports and stuff. But if you get a core of like 4 or 5 full-time runners, and then you can kind of build around that. The 4 or 5 kids that are just like, I'm all in, cross country is my #1 sport, I give them priority. Then you just kind of build around it, and that's pretty much. But I try to make it fun, whether you're a part-time or a full-time runner. Just try to make it a lot of fun. So, but that's kind of what we've done through the years. And I've learned a lot from other coaches that I've worked with. Worked with so many different coaches. Some of the names when I first started coaching, a doctor named Steve Camber, his kids ran, and he always helped me out. He always tried to make it fun too, and this and that. And I remember one practice, his words of wisdom that always stick with me was, remember one practice I was kind of getting frustrated with some of the kids, and like they're not putting enough effort in and this and that. He came over and told me, he goes, Coach, the kids has got to, you can't want it more than the kids. The kids have got to want it. So that always stuck to me. So that always kind of brings me down when I get too overzealous with the kids. I always think the kids have got to want it, not just you, the coach. So that's, and then through the years, I've had worked with David Flowers. That guy knows as much about running as most of the coaches that I've ever met, and I had the pleasure working with him. He kind of joined up with us. We'll get back to that, I guess, when we talk about Derby City. But he was always well read. He knew all the new running techniques, new workout things. He was always reading up, following different athletes, and was always come up with new innovative training exercises and stuff. So we kind of was a good combination there. We kind of worked together good. So it was fun having him around. So. Okay, I rambled some more.
Well, great. Well, since you brought up David Flower and Derby City, let's go ahead and transition and talk about that. We talked with Lisa Groff earlier. I guess it was earlier this year, some about Derby City because she's helping out with that, and then Barry as well. Right. So we've talked to some different Derby City coaches, but tell us about how Derby City came to be and your involvement with Derby City.
All right. Back in, I'm guessing around 2002 or 2003, I told you that group of girls that won state. Back then, I didn't know anything about AAU or anything. John Medley, who coached St. Rayfield's, was coaching at a club called Mason-Dixon Athletic Club, and his girls were always so strong, and I'm like, and I somehow found on the internet, they did have internet back then, that they ran like in the off season a little bit. So I started talking to John, and John says, well, David Long, who was the head of the Mason-Dixon, he says, talk to him. So I talked to David Long, and he says, well, I gave him the girls' names. He goes, well, we'll see, we'll check them out. And I remember seeing them at the next meet, and our girls were like in the top 5 or 6 in the race. He's like, after the race, he goes, yep, they're more than welcome to join us, because he didn't want anybody that was just there to babysit. So he said, but one condition, that you help coach. So me and John Medley coached the girls' middle school, and I think at that time, Barry was coaching the boys, and so for the first year I was help coaching Mason-Dixon. So the following year, some of Mason-Dixon kind of fell apart, but we still had our nucleus of middle school girls. Me and John Medley were coaching, and then we kind of ran into David Flowers, who was starting up Derby City, and we said, well, we ought to join, because we had mostly girls and he had mostly boys. So the first year we didn't have enough time to get uniforms and hook up. So his boys ran under Mason-Dixon, and I mean, his girls ran under Mason-Dixon, and our boys ran under Derby City. So once we went to the national meet, and then the following year, since David already had the website and everything all set up under Derby City, we just decided we'll become part of Derby City. So that's kind of where that started. And I'm thinking that was right around 2002, 2003 is when, and I've kind of been hanging on with them ever since. David got the ball rolling, really built the club up, and pretty much who's who around the distance running in Kentucky has probably run Derby City one time or another. But David was the man. He was the kingpin. He really got into it, got the kids involved. And then once he started the camps, I don't know if you've heard about the Derby City camps. I'm sure you probably have. They were amazing, amazing camp. And then we had a lot of postseason success. And in fact, I'll have to read this out here. We had one team of middle school boys one year for Derby City. And listen, those who know running in the state of Kentucky, here's the team, the middle school team. This would be a coach's dream. You had Zach Bevins, Thomas Cave, Tretez Kennard, Sam Meredith, Max Mudd, Connor Sheriak, Austin Snyder, Jacob Thompson, Luke Winshire, and Holden Wells, and there was a couple other ones I couldn't remember off the top of my head. I'm thinking Paul Adams was on there and Colin Richardson, maybe. So that group of boys, when we went to Alabama and ran at the national AU meet, they pretty much dominated. And after the meet, the coach from Florida came up to us and was talking and said, he recruited the best middle school boys in the whole state of Florida. He said there's no way in the world that they were going to get beat when he came up here. And he says, you guys were just amazing. So that group today, they're still the who's who of running in the state of Kentucky as far as boys go. That was an awesome team. But the Derby City early years were just amazing, a lot of fun. Basically, I always told the kids that at the end of the year, if you join Derby City, it's a reward for your season. It's mostly fun. You get to meet new people, new friends. You make new friends from different things. In fact, I think we've had 3 weddings from people that are met in Derby City. So I know, I'm trying to think, the girl from Oldham County married, and then Thomas and Bailey, and then who's the other couple? I know there's 3 of them that eventually end up getting married, meeting through Derby City. But anyway, make a long story short, that's how it got started, and it built from there. The camps were legendary. There's a lot of great stories that we probably couldn't put on video of the camps, but they were just so much fun. In fact, you had to be at least in the 5th grade and through a senior in high school to go to camp. And there were usually 60 to 80 kids at each camp. We had about 20 chaperones. And I had one of my good little runners, Taylor White, was a 5th grader. And she said if I had my choice of going to Disney World or Derby City Camp, I would go to Derby City Camp 10 times over. So that shows you how much fun that was. But through the years, David really got involved in the timing, so he didn't have enough time to run the show. So we've had several coaches that kind of stepped in and kind of took over. I'm trying to remember a few of the Derby City coaches. I think I wrote some of them down. Of course, Joe Beekler, he's still like the president right now. Kai Swain, Scott Whiteneck has worked with Derby City for a few years. Ben Tracy, Thomas Cave, of course Barry. He's been in and out several years through the years. And then we also we kind of hooked up with the big crew from Northern Kentucky, and Sean Posset had his Hammer club team come down, and then after all his kids got older, Tim Cantrell brought down the Jaguars from Northern Kentucky and hooked up. So we've met a lot of great people throughout the state of Kentucky, coaches, running, and working with all these different coaches through the years. I've taken what I've learned from them, bits and pieces, and formed my own little regiment on how I coach. But basically, coaching elementary and middle school, it's about keeping it fun, and playing games, popsicles, but you can still have really competitive teams doing that both. So that's pretty much it. So
Cool. What I took away from that, a lot of things,
Yeah.
but something that sticks out to me and what's so cool about the running community is how close-knit it is, but then the opportunity to then meet so many people.
Right.
So what Derby City did is it brought people from all over Louisville or even the state to come and compete as a team.
Right.
Well, now you look at a lot of friend groups, and I think of Thomas and like Sam Meredith and all of those people. They all competed at different schools, like Thomas was at St. X and Sam is at Trinity, so rival schools, but they could come together in the postseason and be on a team together and be fighting for each other. And I just think it's really cool how it brings everyone together, so that way when you are on the course in the regular season and you're on different teams, yes, you want to beat that person, but you also want them to do their best that day.
Yeah, it's fun because you go, after the season's over, after the postseason's over, and you start the cross-country season the following year, you get to know so many competitors. So I'm out there going, good job, Taylor, good job. All these kids from all the other schools, they're like one after the other. And that's a good thing about the cross-country community. Everybody cheers for everybody. You don't see people booing or whatever the opponents and stuff. Everybody knows how hard it is, so they appreciate the work that the runners put in, no matter what school they run for. So that makes it a lot of fun. And in fact, as I was talking about that one group of girls, once they got to be right out of high school, I had another little group of I don't know what it is, but all of a sudden St. Edward became the girls teams, even though my son was there. My niece, Emily Bean, and her friend Jessica Bird, and then we had some of her friends in the class, and they came along, and some of the most fun competitive races were against you and your sister. So I enjoyed watching you and your sister run, and so a lot of the races, usually the top 4 or 5 runners were you and your sister and Emily and Jessica and a couple other kids around. So it was really fun watching all the battles. So we always was really admired you and your sister running, because I always thought they put in a lot of hard work, and it paid off. I know was it at what was the one school?
Whitfield.
Whitfield. I can't call it Whitefield. Whitfield.
That's how it's spelled.
Yeah. And then you all hooked up with Swag, and he did some awesome training with you all, and that's how you all became so good. Look, you're still here at Swag's.
I know. We never left. We just came and never left.
Oh, another cool Swag story. When I was a junior at Trinity, we ran at the Western Kentucky Invitational. This was in the early 70s. So it was a college meet, and they also had high school races too. So we ran the high school races through this cornfield. In fact, I had my best race ever. First time I ever broke 10 in 2 miles was there. But anyway, after the high school races, we got to watch Western Kentucky, which was like one of the top teams in the whole country. In fact, I think they won the national championship one year. So I got to actually watch Swag and Nick Rose and some of those other superstars from England, a lot of them from England, run in the Western Kentucky Invitational. So that was kind of a treat for us to see those great runners run in that meet. So that was pretty cool. So that was one of my favorite memories running at Trinity, was going to that Western Kentucky. Not only PR'd, I got to see Western Kentucky, which was one of the top teams in the whole country at that year. So who knew that swag was up here, and I bought many shoes from them.
Dude, come from England and then settle in Louisville, and then you be in Louisville.
Yeah,
That's right. What a small world.
Small world, yeah, it is. So that was pretty cool, really cool event. So.
Awesome. So, and talking about your program now, tell us about the excitement, because you bring it every year.
Well, it's since our enrollment is down, been down to, it's leveled out. Actually, we've got our enrollment increased the last 2 years. But anyway, since we know it's hard to compete with the schools that have, over 1,000 kids when you got 250 to 300 kids, it's hard to put together really competitive teams. So in the last few years, we've had some really good individuals, and we've had some decent teams too, but not like the old days where we could go out and win, state and city and all that good stuff. But it's so much fun, because in the last several years, I've probably had as much fun as I ever had. We've got, we got some kids that are talented and they like to run. We also have some kids that aren't the greatest runners in the world, but they come out and they love to run. It doesn't matter if they finish in the top 10 or the bottom 10, they still get out there and run. So I really admire those kids, because the kids with talent, it comes a little easy, but those that stick with it. And some of the biggest, some of my favorite memories is watching kids, in the early years, they might be towards the back of the pack and they just like to run, and each year they kind of get better and better. And then they go on to high school and they do great in high school, and they go on to college and they run in college. And it's really cool to follow them through the years. And the coolest thing about this year is I'm coaching kids of 2 former runners. So their kids, they came back to St. Edward, and their kids are now running cross country, and I coached them when they were at St. Edward. So that's a great thing about St. Edward. Being in J-Town, it's almost like we're in our own little town, our own little community. Everybody, a lot of the families, they work or they own businesses in J-Town, so everybody kind of knows everybody, which is good most of the time. Sometimes it's not too good, but it's kind of a little different than a lot of schools, because it's a smaller community and everybody everybody knows everybody, and they've kind of got each other's back most of the time. So that makes it a lot of fun. But anyway, talking about the families. Well, first of all, I got to shout out. A coach is only as good as their assistant coaches. I have amazing assistant coaches. I have the parents that all run with the kids. It's funny, more and more each year, you get more and more parents that are out there running with the kids, and it makes it so much fun. But I have my assistant coaches, Brooke and Matt Scott. They're amazing. They warm up the kids for each races. They make sure they have the bibs. They make sure they have their chips on. Make sure they get the chips back and return. During practice, Matt, he runs with the faster kids, and Brooke runs with the rest of them. And they always, if I forget something, they always alert me, hey, Coach Kenny, don't forget about that. Don't forget about that. So I couldn't do it without the great assistant coaches, and so many other parents. They all chip in and they take pictures and stuff and videos, because I always like to make a little movie at the end of the year for our banquet, and it just makes a lot of fun. And after races and stuff, a lot of times we'll go out to eat and have, it's almost like a big party. So I think the parents sign their kids up for cross country, so they just like to go out and party after the meets. My kid hates running, but we still want to come to the parties. No, I'm just kidding, no. So.
Well, it's cool too, and talking to some of the parents and how their children getting involved in cross country has helped them to live healthier lifestyles, because it gets them into running. And so you think, okay, I'm influencing the child, but you're not, you're influencing the families.
Right.
And then you get to know them, you're building relationships to where people are wanting to send their kids to St. Edward's, but then also wanting them to be on your team like they were on your team, which is pretty cool.
That's a lot of fun. And in Kentucky, we're very lucky to have so many programs so many races and so many state championships and everything for elementary and middle school, because there's a lot of states that don't have any of that for their elementary, and some of them don't even have middle school cross country, because I've had some kids that moved to out of state, and they say, you know, they were in second grade then, and they go, wait, they don't have cross country down here in Louisiana, not until you're in middle school. And I was like, so we're kind of blessed to have such a big contingent of people. And nowadays, if your kid wants to run, there's so many opportunities. There's so many clubs. There's so many postseason races that you can run. You know, if you like if you're really into it, and if your kid, as I call a full-time runner, and wants to run all year round, you got Thompson training. They want to run postseasons. You got, of course, Derby City, Tiger Sharks, the Striders, and there's a couple other ones I've seen on results recently that don't know that much about, but they keep popping up. So your kids, if they want to run, there's plenty of opportunities out there to train and run. So and you know, Kentucky has a bad reputation for childhood obesity, with all these kids out there running. Sometimes it frustrates me with the parks departments. I don't think they realize how many kids are into cross country, and we're kind of limited on the parks. You know, I know we used to run in out of McNeely Lake Park, some teams, but somehow they got ran out of that. We got ran out of Seneca Park. Used to have the state and big invitation of Seneca Park, and when I've put on the St. Edward meet, this is the 26th year, and for many years we're the only meet out of Charlie Ventnor. I think they've been pushed out of every park. Now there's, I think I counted 19 races out of Charlie Ventnor this year. so that's one of that and Sawyer and now Champions is one of the few parks left that you can, and nobody wants to run the same course every week against the same competition. It's great to go to all these different courses and stuff. So Parks Department, if you're listening out there, remember there's thousands of kids that love to run cross country, and please make it accessible. I'm happy with Ventnor. They're always been very accommodating with my meet out at Charlie Ventnor, so that's great.
Always a meet I enjoyed. And when you're talking about McNeely, that's where Whitfield practiced.
Yeah.
Every single day.
Oh, really? Yeah.
And so then the meets, the sales always had an invitational there. Meets. And so even the weekday meets, there was always a lot of meets at McNeely, and such a fun and difficult course.
I think, you know, I love trees and stuff, but I think they planted too many trees in the middle of where they run. I think if they just communicate and say, we love more trees is better, but just leave a path for our cross-country teams to go through would help. So I think if we communicate with, because you know, out of Tiger Run, right in the middle of the, you know, there's plenty of places to plant those two trees, but they're right in the middle of the start. I keep waiting for a kid to go plonk right into the tree. Yeah,
unfortunately.
Yeah. So, but yeah, I agree with that. So.
Yeah. Awesome. I've really enjoyed this interview and getting to hear about the different stories and stuff and the performances, or even going back to when you were in high school and just remembering the fun times that you had there, and then the athletes on your team and bringing up. I remember the Jessica Bird and Emily Bean and that whole rivalry, but then just the fun competition it was. And just hearing from the parents and the kids that come by or come into Swags, all of them are excited to go to practice. And I think that's what's important, you know, is teaching them that. So if you were to talk to athletes who are a little hesitant about cross country, what are some things that you would say, hey, maybe you've played basketball, or maybe you haven't done a sport, but like, let's give running a try. What are those things that you like to tell athletes?
Well, several things. First of all, you got to have patience. You just can't go out there. There's very few kids that can go out there and run a few miles without stopping or walking. And once you get over that hump, to where to me it's therapy. I go out, I plod along, because I'm old fart now, but I plod along, and but to me, it's therapy. If I'm having a bad day or something, and I go out to practice and run with the kids, oh, it's like therapy. It's nothing better than clearing your mind and getting out there and running and seeing the enthusiasm of the kid. In fact, nothing's better than, I love the meets and love how the kids do, but going to practice and all the kids are into it and they just kill a hard workout. When I leave that practice, it's like, yeah, I said, it just makes you feel so good. And the kids, they're into it and they just have a great workout, and it's very pleasing to see that.
Great, and that goes with adults as well. The things that you're telling to kids, we as adults can say, okay, yes, it's hard. Running is hard, and that's what you said at the beginning. You said, oh, I'm going to join cross country because it can't be that difficult. And you're like, hold up, it is. But if you stick with it, if you persevere, if you just keep putting one foot in front of the other, then you will make progress. That 1 mile is going to become easier, and then you're going to build up to the second mile and to have fun. And that's what, us as adults too, and we help a lot of adults who are getting into running or maybe doing a Couch to 5K program. And I'm like, just commit to it. Commit to the program and stick with it, because if you do, you will reach that goal.
You have that, what I call it, that aha moment. You try, I'm going to give up, and all of a sudden they just go out and run, whether you're adult or kid, and you have that race where you break out, or as an adult you're trying to get over 5 miles, and you go out and run 5 miles, and it's like, that was pretty easy. You have that aha moment, then you're hooked on that. So, to getting people involved too. Another way of getting the kids involved is patience. Also, for parents-wise, it's not very expensive. Right here is the only expense you have, pretty much, if you're running. You don't have to buy all this equipment. You don't have to, travel out of town every weekend for whatever club volleyball or soccer or whatever you're going. So it's convenient. It's inspirational, and be patient, and it's something that with the healthy, trying to promote health in the state of Kentucky is a good thing. So.
Awesome. Well, that's all the questions I have for you.
Okay.
Is there anything else that you would like to add, or?
One little thing about, when you first started coaching, as I got into it a little bit, I got a little overzealous. So one year I thought, I'm going to go out and buy these heart rate monitors. And back then, this is in the early 2000s or mid 2000s, the heart rate monitor, they had to strap around their chest, and they had to wear this thing. And I went out and bought 4 of them. So I'm gonna charter my kids and their VO2 max and this and that, and I spent more time doing paperwork than trying to coach and trying to get their everything that they were trying to do. And after a couple months go, this is the stupidest thing. I'm not coaching Olympians. I'm coaching middle school. So that kind of put me back to reality. So that was just one other thing I was kind of thinking. And so it's not brain surgery. Especially in elementary and middle school. It's common sense. Most people's philosophies are the same. Coaches just tweak it. I mean, the overall cross-country philosophy is pretty much the same. You just tweak it what best fits you. And you always took pieces from all the different coaches, what worked good for them. I tried them out, and if they worked good for me, I implemented them. But yes, it's. I'm getting up there in years, but I still love coaching, and as long as I can get up and walk, I'll be out there coaching someone. So it's fun. So not too long after I started coaching cross country, I was asked to take over the track program. I really didn't know much about sprints or field events. I was mostly a distance guy, but I started doing a lot of reading and going to a lot of clinics for the next few years, and started to enjoy the field events. In fact, I was a certified pole vault coach, and I had a middle school girl win state 2 years in a row. So, but I enjoy coaching all the field events, and especially the high jump. I had someone ask me a while back if I was ever interested in coaching high school. I thought about it. In the past, I've been offered a couple of high school coaching positions, but I had got the St. Edward program going really good, and I didn't want to leave. I had a great group of kids coming up, and I didn't want to leave. And another coach happened to mention, well, you at St. Edward, you're a volunteer. When you're in high school, you get paid, so people can criticize you more freely that way. So he had a good point there. So through the years, I've been blessed to have so many great athletes come through our school, and they've had some great accomplishments. Just a few of the accomplishments. In recent years, we had a group of girls that were affectionately called, or affectionately named by an opposing coach, the Four Blondes. And during their career at St. Edwards, they never lost a CSAA city championship in both track and cross country. So that was 11 championships total. Plus they had won, their teams had won 3 state championships. So, and then one year at the cross country state championship, we had the top finishing 6th grade girl, the top finishing 5th grade girl, the top finishing 4th grade girl, and the top 2 finishing 3rd grade girls. So now I look back at that, I didn't realize how amazing that was. And in another year in cross country, we had the 4th grade and under girl state championship. This was the same year, the 5th and 6th grade girls state champion, and just missed winning the 7th and 8th grade girls just by a state championship, where our girl finished 2nd, just a few seconds behind the winner. Almost got the trifecta there. So, so I would like to acknowledge a few of our great athletes that got their start at St. Edwards. All these on this list were either individual middle school or high school state champions, or made the all-state team in high school or ran in college. So I'll go down my list here. Hillary Raitt, Brooklyn Hurley, Samantha Hodge, Caitlin McGuire, Allison Riedling, Ashley Alradi, Emily Bean, Jessica Bird, Christina Rosinski, Amanda Jaworski, Hannah Elliott, and these next 2 sisters I think y'all might have heard of. Katerina Karras, she was a high school state champion, and her little sister Gabby Karras was a 4-time high school state champion, and arguably one of the greatest high school runners in Kentucky history. In fact, when they were younger, I remember trying to convince their mom that she had some very talented girls and to keep them interested in running. So hopefully that paid off for them. Some more with Olivia Ryan, Abby Jaworski, Marissa Polio, Bailey Montgomery, Sarah Wilkinson, 3200 state champion. The 4 blondes' names were Madeline Powell, Julia Conley, Taylor White, and Abigail Bone, who won cross-country state championships 3 times. Christian Bone, Brooklyn Camposano, who was a great runner. She had 29 city and state championships in cross-country and track, and another one in the national championship, AAU national champion. So, well, we also had a few boys, believe it or not. Kyle Colbert, Nick Lewis, Austin Montgomery, and Cannon Reed, to name a few. And these were just our distance runners. We had many more in track and field. I'm sorry if I missed anyone, but there was a lot of great kids that came through not only stars, but just kids that enjoyed running. My current squad has a lot of future stars. It's a great group of kids who I love dearly. Lastly, I want to wish all the cross-country runners good luck this season, all the cross-country runners and coaches, good luck this season. I admire you all. So, good luck.
Well, great. Well, thanks for coming out tonight.
Thanks for putting up with me today.
Oh, we are happy to. It's great to be able to have this conversation and get to learn more about your programs and the lives that you've touched. And I know just in working at Swags, like how many of our employees over the years, how many of them have been a part of Derby City? We were talking to Emma right before this started, and she was talking about her involvement and
I could tell you
things.
some stories on Emma too.
Oh, we'll have to definitely hear those after this. But yeah, just all of that and the community that it's built.
Right.
I know if you're in the running community, it's a club that we bring up often to kids and say, hey, if you want something to do postseason, look into Derby City because they care about, number one, they care about you as an athlete. They care about you as a person. And you all want what's best for the kids. You want them to have fun. You want to instill things within their lives, discipline, and all of those different tools to help them become better individuals for it. So I think it's awesome what you all are doing, and thanks for coming out.
Okay, couldn't have said it any better. Thank you.